Well, this is it. Chapter 364 was the last chapter Miura worked on before his passing, and it's the first one released since then, and boy is it a bittersweet one. We last left off with the Moonlight Boy appearing before Guts. Okay, I don't really feel like saying Moonlight Boy over and over again, so henceforth, he shall be referred to as Moon Unit. Guts takes him into the treehouse where his friends are staying, and Big Brain Shirka thinks she's figured out his true identity. She very confidently explains to the group how him mysteriously showing up throughout their journey and then disappearing must mean he was actually Danan, observing them all along. That hypothesis, however, is quickly shot down when Danan herself enters the room to offer everyone some pumpkin pie. This gives Isma and Isidro a rare opportunity to make fun of the smart girl for overthinking things and going all in on her little hunch. Shirka, of course, gets super embarrassed, and it's all really cute. The kids take Moon Unit to Casca, and he immediately runs over to her and jumps into her arms. Shirka tells Danan about their encounters with Moon Unit and why that led her to believe that Danan herself was the kid in disguise. Danan explains how Shirka's mistake is understandable because the boy's odd resembles the odd of a fairy. She also mentions that him being able to set foot on the island means that he has no evil intentions and that the island itself must have guided him there. It seems that the group being taken in by the island made it possible for Moon Unit to be guided there by the island through his connection to them, especially Casca and Guts, for obvious reasons. Strangely enough, he doesn't vanish with the sunrise this time. Danan says it's because the flow of time in Lordran is convoluted. The flow of time on Elfhelm is muddled. Basically, it's like a reverse hyperbolic time chamber. Time goes by faster on the island than it does in the rest of the world. So even though the sun came up here, it's still that same night in the rest of the world, so he has some more time with them. We see Moon Unit playing with the student mages and trying to recreate the Abbey Road album cover with a bunch of golems, while the mage elders observe the boy and again see no reason to believe that he's any sort of threat, but decide to keep an eye on him anyway. This is where the real bittersweetness kicks in. We see Moon Unit playing with the girls in Serpico as Farnese talks about how peaceful and great everything is, and then Serpico chimes in saying that them living together like this is making them into a big family. Just looking back at how dark and depressing things have been throughout the story, and how big of a deal it is for Casca to be able to spend time with her son as her true self, just really hits me right in the feels. And everything's just multiplied by Miura's passing. Even if the story is never finished, I'm just glad we were able to see this. We then cut to Guts as he's training with the Dragon Slayer, and it seems that the Berserker armor is really starting to take a toll on his body. When he swings his sword, he loses his grip on it and throws it into the water. He then tries to throw one of his knives at some fruit on a tree, but misses his target as we see that his vision is continuing to fade from the overuse of the armor. Moon Unit then decides to go see what his dad's up to, and seeing the Berserker armor on the ground, he decides to climb into the chest plate so he can pretend to fight like Daddy. He even picks up a stick as a make-believe sword, and Guts has a little duel with his son. This one page shows just how much Guts has grown as a person after all this time. This Guts and the Guts from right after the eclipse are like two completely different people. This is why Miura was such a master. We got to see the whole arduous process of Guts going from a nihilistic asshole who cared about nothing but revenge to this emotionally mature, caring father whose primary goal now is just to find a way to be with the only woman he's ever loved, as well as the happiness of his friends. Guts hears his friends walking nearby, so he smiles at Moon Unit and tells him to go be with them. Guts still tragically has to keep his distance from Casca and watch from afar. Later that night, Casca's in bed dreaming about the nostalgic feeling she had as Elaine when Moon Unit showed up before. A feeling of affection and sorrow. It's at that moment that she figures out who he really is and she bolts awake. She looks out her window and sees Moon Unit sitting on the grass with Guts standing behind him. Then, the boy begins to transform back into Griffith as we hear his thoughts. Thoughts of having this dream where he was a child embraced by this nostalgic warmth. But when he wakes from the dream, Only a vague sense of longing remains. The transformation is now complete as Griffith turns to look at Guts and Casca, with a single tear flowing down his cheek, with the thought that all those feelings will soon disappear, like the morning dew. Wow, this is the worst cliffhanger ever. Griffith is on Elfhelm and he knows Guts and Casca are there. This also happens to be where all the mages are. We know he had Flora killed because he sees mages as his only legitimate threat. So it seems that this could be setting up a possible invasion by the Neo Band of the Hawk, with an epic final showdown between Guts and Griffith. The only problem, though, is that we got a message from Young Animal at the end of the issue stating that since this was the last chapter Miura worked on personally, they decided to finish and release it, but there's no word whether or not the story will be continued by his studio. This might be the last we see of Berserk. It really sucks that it's a big cliffhanger and everything, but if it did have to end prematurely, I think this is probably the best place for it to have happened. The story ending with everyone happy like this, with the final reunion of Guts and Casca with their child, really was touching. One more thing. I just did a full review and analysis of the Berserk PS2 game that was never released outside Japan, so check it out if you've ever been curious about that game. I'm only shilling for it because that video took a shit ton of work and I really want to see it do well. If new Berserk stuff ever does come out in the future, I'll be right there to cover it. But I will continue to make Berserk content alongside other stuff either way, so hey, if you like my stuff, subscribe. Likes and comments are also much appreciated, and thanks so much for watching.